Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Cybersecurity Trends in Intelligent Transportation Systems and Real-World Applications. Joining us today, we have two speakers from Moxa. The first is going to be Marty Wachi. He's the Senior Product Marketing Manager here. Marty, he specializes in industrial cybersecurity, network management, and wireless networking. He has over 20 years of experience at companies like Apple Computer, Bay Networks, Nortel Networks, D-Link Systems, and more. And he's also led the launch of 1,200 products globally, including routers, switches, wireless APs, and more. Also joining us today is Mario Binaun. He is an accomplished telecommunication engineer with expertise in industrial protocols, wireless networks, network routing and switching, cybersecurity, and edge computing. He holds several industry certifications and has over 30 years of experience in both enterprise and industrial networking. Some housekeeping items before we jump into our presentation. The webinar is going to be 60 minutes, including some time for questions at the end. If you would like to submit questions, please do that at any time by using the Q&A function that you see in Zoom. You will also see the occasional poll question pop up on your screen. We encourage you to participate in those. The recording is going to be shared afterwards, so you can go back and watch the on-demand version. There will also be a survey after the webinar. We really appreciate your feedback on the presentation. And with that in mind, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Marty to kick off our webinar.
Hey, thanks, James. Thanks, guys, for showing up. Here's what we're going to go over today. We're going to cover industry trends that are shaping the future of ITS networks, as well as security and network management solutions from Moxa. Mario is going to cover some real-world examples of network segmentation strategies. He's got a couple real-life use cases that he's going to cover with you guys, covering physical, logical, encryption, higher uptime, and faster recovery. Mario is also our resident expert on network management, so he's actually going to take you through some of the cool functions in our MX View 1 demo, specifically security view and some other network management things. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So with that, let me go ahead and get started here. So for those of you that may not know who Moxa is, we are a private company based out of Taiwan. We've been around for over 35 plus years. We are solely focused on industrial edge communications for critical infrastructure. These are kind of the 6 major vertical markets that we play in: rail, manufacturing, power, transportation, which is the subject of today's webinar, oil and gas, and marine. The nice thing from a security and networking perspective is that we are able to take our experience from all of these different verticals and take those best practices and share them across a wide range of audience and networks. We're the #1 global supplier in serial connectivity. As far as industrial Ethernet, we are #1 in Asia and #4 globally. You can see the number of distributors and countries that we are in worldwide, and we are now over 102 million connected devices. So a lot of things that we've connected here for OT. So let's get the webinar started off with a poll question. And we wanted to know if your network is still air-gapped or not. All right, so James, can you put up the results there for us? So it looks like, wow, 50-50. Half of you are and half of you aren't. All right, that's good to know. All right, so let's jump into kind of what's happening. So if you look at some of the security reports that are out there, starting with IBM and Fortinet, one of the things that is kind of interesting is, not only is the number of threats still on the rise in terms of OT compromised networks and hacks and things like that, but what's very interesting is in the Fortinet example down here that, as late as, 2019, 2020, 90% of Fortinet's customers that they had talked to, had some type of intrusion um, in the OT side of the network, which is really surprising to me given the fact that this day and age, I don't know of any customer that's not using some form of firewall or something. So definitely it speaks to the fact there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of locking down these systems and making sure that we're doing what we can to protect these systems. Another thing from the IBM cost of a data breach report, and it kind of goes along with some of the information that we're seeing with um, the Fortinet information is that interestingly enough, that 1 in 3 breaches were identified by the security team within that particular company, which means 2 out of 3 of the breaches were actually reported by third parties or partners of the organization because they had no visibility to the fact that they had been compromised. So again, that speaks to a lot of holes and gaps that we still have in a lot of these networks, given that people don't even know that they've been compromised. When you look at the cost of these data breaches by industry, again, this is a transportation focused call. So you can see here that, year over year, the cost of the breach is going up from the previous year, 2022 to 2023. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. The last thing that I thought was kind of interesting from this report was, and it kind of goes back to that, 2 out of 3 companies didn't even know that they were breached. And you look at this time to identify and contain a breach chart here from the IBM report. And you can see from 2017, the purple bar here was 191 days is how long it took for them to identify the breach, and then 66 days to basically contain it and obliterate it. In 2023, what's surprising to me is that number hasn't gotten smaller, it's actually gotten bigger. And so has the time it takes to contain the breach. So not only are we kind of losing ground, but we're not really doing a better job of finding some of these breaches. So some of the things we'll talk about today will hopefully help us all make our networks a little bit more secure. So I thought that was an interesting trend that was a little concerning. So when we think about how things are evolving, as I talk to customers, not just in transportation, but across all the different verticals that we play in, this is kind of how I would summarize what's top of mind for the people I've been talking with. So first off, I would say, this trend of everything must be connected, easy, simple, scalable, secure. This has been something that's been going on. Digitizing the network is something that we've all been seeing for probably the last decade. What's different, I think, is this other box here, which is this AI transformation. It really feels very similar to kind of the next internet. Hopefully, you guys are old enough to remember back when the internet was first coming along. I remember working at certain companies, and you hear customers thinking, "Well, do I really need an online website? Do I need an e-commerce? Do I really need this? Is the internet really going to be that transformational?" And I think we can see kind of how things have gone. I think a lot of people are seeing AI, especially for OT networks, as being kind of similar to that. And we have a lot of customers asking these questions about, how are you going to connect things? How are you going to protect your data? How are you going to grow and evolve your network? And do we have all the right tools? And both of these two first buckets here really are about, I need to have everything be connected, right? It's not just kind of a nice to have. If I want to take advantage of the telemetry, I want to take advantage of the AI models to stay current, then I need to connect all of these things together. In doing so, it kind of creates a second set of problems. So then you've got kind of the second set of buckets here of the AI transformation and the financial stakes here. So as we connect more things, the surface area of attack goes up, which makes all of our networks a little bit more vulnerable. And then there's legal and regulatory things that we're all subject to, and that's only getting more complicated. There's definitely investments to think about from both a CapEx and OpEx perspective, because a lot of our budgets are not growing at the same rate that we're needing to connect things and the threats are. And this really is about needing more visibility and security for this AI transformation and financial stakes. And these are kind of the three buckets and two main topics that we probably talk about, or I talk about in almost every customer engagement. Okay, so one question that we have is, how confident are you in your OT Ed cybersecurity threat detection from a poll question? So if you guys can take a second to answer the question here. Are you not very confident? Are you somewhat confident? Are you very confident that you have a pretty solid network, especially given some of the data that we've seen? Hopefully you guys are somewhat or very confident in your Ed cybersecurity capabilities. We'll just give you another couple seconds here to answer that. And then James, maybe when you're ready, you can pop up that response. Okay, so most of you are somewhat confident. That's very good. It looks like there's a good number of you that are somewhat unsure of what your status is, and as well as not very confident. So hopefully we'll be able to help you through this webinar, or maybe with some follow-ups to help some of those folks that are unsure or not very confident. So when we talk about Moxa's networking value proposition for OT networks, these are kind of the three buckets that I kind of put our main value propositions in: peace of mind, cybersecurity, and operational efficiency. So there's a bunch of things that we're going to do that help lower your total cost of ownership, help you basically make sure that you can sleep at night knowing that the products that you have from us and the technologies are current and will help you do what you need to do, but also do it in a way that's secure, is of the latest tech, helps you get ready for this AI transformation that we're talking about. And then probably more importantly, the operational efficiency aspect, right? We're always having to do more with less. This is where the ease of use of the product, some of the network management stuff that we'll talk about kind of come into play, that Mario will cover partly in his section. There's the Moxa security model. This is kind of important for folks that are thinking about who are you going to have as partners. This is our solution model. So it starts with a secure development, which means all of our suppliers, factory supply chain, have been certified for 62443-4-1 compliancy. That means that we are able to kind of track all of those things and be able to, when there are problems, go back and root cause and trace that pretty easily and identify what are some of the affected products and alert you guys of what's going on there, as well as take action from a supply chain perspective. There's the product piece, which I think is pretty straightforward. These are just the security features of the product. I think a really important piece, especially for this audience, given the size networks that we're trying to manage here, is the secure management piece. I think Moxa has a really good set of solutions here that we'll talk about. Obviously, education and partner programs is important, because the more eyes you can get on these types of things, the better off you are. So making sure our partners are aware so they can help you. And then on the back end, making sure we have all the right support advisories and stuff in place to be able to alert you when we do find problems or vulnerabilities with the product. So when we talk about, kind of how we see things for this particular market, so you've got these ITS systems. These are just some of the things that you guys are trying to do at your jobs from a daily basis in terms of what you're responsible for. These are some of the ITS goals and objectives that we hear about, in terms of what are you trying to accomplish with these intelligent transportation systems. And then we try and take this and say, okay, here are some areas where we think we can help, right? There's our years of experience that we just talked about. We'll go through some of the portfolio pieces that we have, really trying to focus on optimizing both the CapEx and OpEx, knowing that people's budgets are not really growing at the rate that we need to in order to keep up with the cybersecurity threats out there, making sure things are easy to use and to manage, having centralized management tools to improve your efficiency and scale, and then make sure the devices themselves are hardened and up to the harsh environments and malicious cyber threats that you guys are going to be exposed to. So that covers kind of some of the industry trends. Let me talk a little bit about the security and network management solutions before I turn it over to Mario. But before I do that, let's ask kind of a network management question to kind of get us started in this area. And we were just wondering how many of you today are using network management and using the alerting function to alert you to things that are going on with your network that might be um, you know, devices going down, ports going down, things changing, so that you're able to react in a timely fashion. So if you guys can take a minute to answer if that's something that you guys are doing or not, this kind of help us gauge how to talk about some of these next sections here. All right, so it looks like a few more people are not versus some that are. Kudos to the folks that are, and for those of you that aren't, hopefully we'll be able to give you some good reasons to maybe look at that. So let me keep going here. So when we talk about security at Moxa, I think it's really important to make sure that we understand kind of where do we fit in the greater scheme of things. And Moxa is really targeted at kind of this edge part of the network. Like I've worked at Cisco for over 15 years. We are not trying to compete with Cisco at Moxa. We are trying to complement what they have. So if you're using Cisco, Palo Alto, Fortinet, those are premier IT security tools, and you should continue to use them. But a lot of those tools aren't really designed for the edge of these industrial networks. And I think that's where we kind of come into play, knowing that we're trying to integrate with these things and be complementary, not competitive. We do integrate with a lot of IT protocols. If you were to look at the overall cybersecurity offering from Moxa, we've tried to overlay this. It's a little busy of a slide, but the first part here is kind of just your typical layered view of the network, and then kind of overlaying that with IEC 62443 in terms of the different parts there. And then these are the actual parts that Moxa sells, from device security, secure management, secure infrastructure, and security management, that allows you to kind of pull all those things together. So again, starting off, here's kind of the Purdue model, the IEC 62443 model, and then kind of where the Moxa products kind of fit in with those models. Okay, so if we just jump into the security appliances, this is not meant to be a product commercial for Moxa, but we do have probably one of the most comprehensive and industry-leading edge security portfolios for industrial networks. We've got a lot of different products here at a lot of different price points, targeting that edge of the network, that have firewall capabilities, have IDS, IPS options for malware and other types of things that you can add on via a license later if you want, different form factors, different speeds and feeds. Some are certified, others are compliant with 62443. So we've got, like I said, a lot of good solutions here to help you secure the edge of the network. From a network management perspective, this is something that I've worked at a lot of tech companies in the past, and this is something we did a very poor job of selling at a lot of the other companies that I was at. So, and it's confusing, and there's a lot of different functions to it. So the way I try and break it down is what part of the lifecycle management is a pain point for you all. So whether it's provisioning, monitoring, update and maintain, secure remote access, security policy and threat response, troubleshooting, or upgrade and replace, we have different tools that are available. So if you guys could take a look at this really quick and think to yourself, where do we have some pain points, especially for those of you that might not be using network monitoring for alerting yet? We'll have a poll question later to ask like which one of these are some pain points, and maybe just take a note of that now and answer that a little bit later when we get there. One thing I'll point out in this particular slide is that all of these are perpetual licenses, so there's no subscriptions to any of our paid for network management platforms. Mario will even show you later one of our network management tools that are completely free. This is just something in terms of a lot of times you guys are looking at adding a particular product, and network management may not be top of mind for you. So these things and different features here are different ways of asking kind of this question about, do you need network management? If you look at anything on this chart here in terms of things that you would like to see capability wise, a lot of these only can be provided through network management. So you really need to be able to have network management in order to take advantage of these things. So if you have questions, you see things on here that you're interested, definitely go ahead and put it in the Q&A section and let us address that towards the end of the presentation. But this is just a great way of thinking, like when I'm buying a product, are any of these capabilities that I'm interested in adding to my network? And if so, then I might need to look at network management. We talked about the OT-IT convergence, and I think the main point of this slide is that with everything that's going on, you saw the data from IBM and Fortinet, device level network management at the GUI level of the device just really isn't enough anymore to be able to protect and proactively manage these networks. And we really need a more centralized network management approach. So Moxa has a couple tools I'm just going to go through at a very, very high level. And if you're interested, you can ask questions in the Q&A, or we can follow up, send us a message and we can follow up with you later. The first one is our MX Security Network Management Architecture. And this is basically our firewall policy manager. And this is a big differentiator for us at Moxa, because really the only other folks that have anything like this are your IT security companies, your Cisco's, your Fortinets, your Palo Altos, your Checkpoints. Most of our OT firewall competitors, I'm not aware of any of them that have a centralized policy manager that allows you to set the firewall policy in one place and then deploy it across multiple firewalls across multiple locations. And to me, this is definitely worth the price of admission. MX Security has an MSRP of $99 per device that you're going to manage. Allows you to manage the firewall rules. If you're running the IDS IPS function, it's almost a must-have to do it at this level. It does all the automatic updating. These are kind of some of the things that it does: centralized management, unified security policy management, enhanced visibility for malicious activity and real-time alerting. This is also where, if you've got a larger IT organization that's maybe has a security monitoring InfoSec group, this is where we could take all of the industrial firewall information, consolidate it, and hand it off to IT, SOC, or SIEM, so that they can consolidate all of that with their security view. At a high level, this is what MX Security does: is you basically put your firewalls into a device group. You go into the UI, you set your firewall policy, you hit apply to the group, and it pushes it out to all of those firewalls. So really pretty cool. Optionally, we have our intrusion detection and prevention. This is an add-on with a partnership with Trend Micro that allows us to do a lot of that malware, ransomware blocking. It also has a feature called virtual patching, which is really popular amongst a lot of our customers, where they're running older operating systems like maybe Windows 7 or soon to be Windows 10 that are no longer supported and patchable. Because we're working with Trend Micro and they've got a long history of desktop security protection in the enterprise, we have signature files to block some of those unpatched OS exploits at the network level. MXV1, which Mario is going to show a little bit later in just a few minutes, is our site level network manager. It allows you to visualize and do a lot of things at the network level, including auditing and stuff. We recently added MXV1 Central Manager that basically allows you to consolidate multiple sites and view them all in one place and be able to and get reporting and all of that. So that's pretty awesome. These are just some things that we've added recently in terms of some of the security capabilities: rogue device detection, disabling unsecure management, interfaces, blocking unused ports, enhanced firmware management, just a lot of things that we've added just in the last 6 months here, along with a lot of the good things that we've had before. MXV1 is really focused on visualization, device configuration, device monitoring, event notification. If this is something that you're interested in getting some more information, message us in the Q&A or hit us up on chat, and we'll try and reach out to you and get something scheduled. Lastly, MXV1 Central Manager. This is kind of the manager of managers, and it's got a couple of cool things that it does in particular. It gives you a dashboard of all the sites that you're managing. That allows you to get console access to each MXV1 instance that you're managing. Gives you hierarchical administrative rights across all the different sites and databases, as well as gives you centralized licensing and management, which allows you to move licenses around between sites dynamically, and allows you to more efficiently use those licenses. And obviously it has reporting. Last thing here in terms of capabilities, these are some of the things from a security perspective that have been recently added, like I said, in the last 6 months, that fall under that operational efficiency, that security and peace of mind to help you scale the network. Even if you're not using our firewalls, you're just using network managed switches, this is something that I definitely think could help you. Within the presentation that we'll send out, here's some information on everything. Has a free trial that you can go ahead and download, and we can help you get that set up, as well as kind of what the MSRPs on some of this are. So with that, it brings us to kind of the end of this section and our last poll questions. I asked you earlier, I showed you kind of the network lifecycle and wanted to know what are some of the pain points that you have from a network management perspective? Is it provision and deploy, monitor, update, maintain, secure access, remote access, centralized security policy, troubleshooting, upgrade and replace? And you can check multiple items here. Again, this will just help us figure out like how we can help you guys, what kind of webinars we should do in the future, maybe even where to take some of the Q&A after we're done. So if you guys could just go through and check, excuse me, check that real quick. And then James will put that up here on the board here pretty quick, I think. Okay, I didn't know, there we go. All right, so it looks like the big ones are monitor, update and maintain, secure remote access, centralized. Okay, so a lot of good things. So a lot of stuff that we covered. Okay, that's great. That definitely helps us. Thank you. All right, so with that, I would like to turn it over to Mario. And Mario is going to go through his section here and start with some of the real world applications. So Mario, if you want to take it away.
All right. Thank you, Marty, for that very informative and concise information about security. Something that definitely we've been looking forward to. I mean, for me to see that. Let me go ahead and see if I can click through the screens here, or get to the next screen here. All right. So again, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Mario Banao, and I've been with Moxa for almost 8 years, and been working with Marty and the folks for some time, and very excited to be in the transportation group. So I'm solely dedicated for the past couple years now to be the field application engineer when it comes to ITS and even rail and all of transportation for the North America. Even South America. So been doing this for some time on the network side. So I'd love to talk to you guys about more about it. If you guys do have questions, please put it in the Q&A. But the first one that I wanted to talk about is the dynamic variable messaging, message signs. We do a lot of this throughout California for Caltrans. Had a very lengthy vetting process to go through, but they did look for security. They did look for redundancy. And what we came up with after their challenges were met, how outdoor environments, very harsh, as you can see that screen in the picture there. It's out hanging above the freeway, so a lot of environmental issues there. they needed redundancy. They needed these things to actually work. As you can see, the sign says slow fog. It does give warning. It gives a lot of information for the drivers. So this is very essential that it's operating. So that was one of their requirements, is a network redundancy. And then definitely hardware security protection. Our devices are very hardened. Again, going back to the IEC 62443 standard that we try to hold to, or we do hold to, and even get certified on some of the devices. Um, these devices are hardened, have the capabilities of, anybody trying to get into them, even if they break the physical security. One of the things that I'm sure you folks on the call here that are ITS folks, those cabinets on the wayside can be penetrated, or even broken into, or even an accident where somebody hits one. So definitely need that kind of protection. And what we came up with is actually some really hardened devices. One of our industrial grade computers, the V2201 series, and that has several very secured and very high temperature solutions to it, as well as our EDS 518E enterprise grade switches, industrial grade switches that are actually up in the sign. These devices are up there in the sign, and they're actually cabled either fiber or copper back down to the cabinet, usually fiber. These devices are hardened. As you can see, the specs that are on the screen there that give you that protection that they were looking for. One of the other things too, for security reasons, they actually segment their network. So basically, the connection that's going down to the cabinet is on one network, whereas the connection going to the screen and to the information that is displayed on the screen is on another network. That gives that protection that they're looking for. So let me take a look at this. Right here on this one, you can see the multiple ports on it. And then here you actually have redundancy. You can have the fiber ports as well as with copper ports, depending on the scenario where the signs are actually implemented. The next one I wanted to talk about is ATMS, Advanced Transport Management Systems. And typically what that means, okay, for you guys out there that are in this business, it's the traffic cabinet for an intersection. It provides that management and monitoring of that traffic intersection, of what's going on. Are we in flashing mode? Are we in, looks like we lost my display here. Hang on. Okay, I'm back. um, and the challenges with that is, you have a lot of different IP devices now. You're actually monitoring all this equipment, so you're going to have a bunch of IP devices to manage. What kind of networks? 'Cause now you're sending back video, so it's going to be a faster network. And then you need a real-time monitoring, so low latency to be able to do that. Redundancy and security, right? That's what we're talking about here on this call, is security, because again, that cabinet can be breached, or that can be, actually taken out by an unfortunate accident. And then central monitoring, because all this redundancy, all this security, if you're not actually monitoring it, how will you know that it's down until you get a phone call from somebody, or from the police agencies that are in the area saying, hey, your section so and so is down. So these are the challenges, and what we came up with is again our hardened switches and our field management routers. Now these routers here, the EDR 810, is a full-fledged router and switch. We actually call it our Swiss Army knife, because it can do a lot. It can do actually do segmentation. It can do IP addressing scheme, which is called NAT, network address translation, and then also it is designed to the 62443 4-2 standard, fully compliant with our MXView1, MNS, and SNMP application. We're going to definitely show you guys a little bit more on this later, but it gives you that ability to, each cabinet itself can be the same IP addressing scheme because you're using that NATing. This really helps out on a lot of deployments, just architecture. You only have that one IP address on the EDR, or several, a lot less, because that way now you have the same IP addressing in the cabinet, where on the network side and the monitoring side, you're actually aggregating those devices. All right. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and post it up in the Q&A so I can, take a look at them. Love to help you guys with any of your questions. The next one is toll collection that, I've actually been involved with up in the Bay Area, with several agencies. The application is, collecting revenue so they can better serve the the community with with toll lanes, being able to get those cars through the traffic a lot faster. However, that does take money, and they do collect for that, so it is a revenue stream. So they have a lot of challenges when it comes to being able to those screens that display it, just like in the other informational screens that we talked about earlier. They need to be low latency and fast recovery, redundancy, port security and protection. A lot of things that need to be out in the field on the edge. They need to be able to accommodate this. A lot of sensors out there, right? You can imagine them, counting cars, counting axles, counting a lot of information when the vehicles are on the road. The solution that we came up with, we actually use in the field a layer 3 core switch, and you can see that down here in the bottom here. Let me get my pointer. Right here, the ICS G7748A. It's a rack mount for you, but it's modular, so you can actually add as many ports as you need. But actually, we're actually doing in the field layer 3 routing back to their TMC, where actually that information is being redundant using MPLS and SMTP. So we're a lot of things going on here, but a lot of low latency technology here to be able to provide that requirement for them. And then the edge switching, the G512E, as well as our analog inputs and digital inputs, the IO logic and the N-port 5150. Very robust solution, and very scalable, and when they need to, low latency and highly redundant. And then next I'm going to take a look at is a little diagram that I threw together for the folks on the call. And if you guys have any questions, please, go ahead and put it in the Q&A here. This is like a design that I see a lot of places now, where the switches I actually have here, I guess you could see them that way, are like, let's say those are your traffic cabinets out in the field, and you have it so that way they're connected to each other, but they're actually on their a private ring. So you have the turbo ring, which is a MOXA protocol, redundancy protocol, and they're actually it's redundant. So if you have a break anywhere, it's actually going to reroute itself. But behind that, we're actually having from their TMC. Let me see if I can. Oh, we got it down here too. Or is it going to draw it? Look at that. All right. You have the TMC is actually, this is a VPN concentrator, and they have a tunnel going back to each of your intersections. So now they're actually segmentating their network with encrypted tunnels over a redundant turbo ring network. So these networks in the traffic cabinets are now secured, because no one can get to them because they're in a secured environment. So very scalable, and then also highly secured network, especially when you're talking about some of these cabinets are actually controlling flow of traffic and major intersections. So with that, I think I got next here. We're going to take a look at MXView, I got a little short video here, a couple of short videos where I can show you how our MXView 1 can provide this security mechanism to lock down your switches, and a couple other things too. Let's go ahead and start this guy up. Okay, so basically this is MXView 1. This is a client server application. So you can run this at your TMC and actually be able to run it. So what I've got here is it's very hierarchical. You can set it up so that way you have different groups. I created this one for this seminar. As you can see, I have a map background, and I'm showing a switch up here where it actually gives you a lot of information by just clicking on it. And then we have other, settings where you can do the groups. Excuse me. And then let's take a look at one of these visualizations we call security view. This will actually query the devices. This is Moxa only, but it'll actually go out and query the devices, the Moxa devices, and tell you where you're at on your security level. And then actually go, wow, look, okay, I didn't change the password here. I didn't, turn off a TCP UDP port, because those are the things that can get breached. And this will help you be able to do that. And then you can go along and just click on it. It'll actually bring that up and show you where that information is on your screen. Can you imagine if you had like 30 or 40 of these? This really helps out to find out where, oh, okay, hey, I look at this switch down here I need to go ahead and work on. And then lastly, you can actually see where the device is and find out where it's going on here. I would be actually remiss not to be able to show you some of other security features, like the cybersecurity, where you can turn on and off ports that are open, that are not being used. I can actually turn them off. I can reboot, upgrade the firmware, import, export configurations on a schedule, for that matter. MXView 1 is loaded with a lot of solutions that can really help you guys out. Then also you can take a look at your firmware, manage that from the MXView 1. Definitely when you actually have some kind of issue or security report on it that has to upgrade that firmware, this helps you there. And then we also even have where you can take a look at the assets and where the warranty ends for the Moxa equipment. So with that, I have another little tool here. Let me go ahead and stop that if I can. I think I can stop it. So yeah, this is called MX Config. This is a free tool that you can download from Moxa. And if you guys do want to get that, please let us know. We'll definitely provide that information. But for all Moxa equipment, and this is Moxa specific, you can actually query your network. You can do a broadcast. You can do a directed IP scan, or even have a list of IP addresses where you can take a look at your equipment. And you actually can see this live. So this is not only a great deployment tool, but it can be a great tool to be able to monitor and manage your network, because you can do a lot of the same kind of similar things that you could do with MXView 1, but you can do this from here. So what I want to show you, let me go ahead and start it back up. Okay, here we go. I'm going to show you all that stuff that you just saw in MXView 1. I can actually configure it from here. My security wizard, it'll actually go there, query the device. It'll bring up, okay, I'm talking to it. How do you want to set up the security settings? I say I want to do all of them, right? I want to go to the highest. I'm going to go ahead and load the configuration. I've already staged this, of course, and I've already set all these parameters. But one of them I forgot, the password one. I'm going to go ahead and click on this and adjust it. The other thing too is the password you see is red, and then you see configuration encryption red, and then SNMP red. The reason why is because for security reasons, we don't want to be able to pull that information out. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip them. And then that's going to go ahead and configure that device for us. And this is real time. I didn't cut any time out of it, but it's only setting one of the parameters. So we're good there. All right. I think we're right there. Marty, if I'm going to go ahead and forward it to the next one here. All right. Okay, I went too far. Okay, summary. I'll hand it back to you there, Marty. Hope I didn't
Yeah,
go too
so
far.
no, that's fine, Mario. Okay, so just real quick, just to kind of summarize what we've seen so far, you've got a bunch of OT networks in 2024 that really are still vulnerable. And it's not just ITS networks, it's a lot of our customer networks that we're seeing this from, based on the data that we've seen. So hopefully some of the tools that we've shown you, some of the equipment that we have, if you're not using it or not using it to its full extent, you'll be able to use them and help secure these networks a little bit better. Hopefully you've also seen how scalable some of the tools are, and as you've got tens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of these network devices, as we connect these networks together and start to get ready for AI and other things, you can see that having scalable network management tools is super important. So using MXView, MXV1, Central Manager, MX Security, even MX Config that Mario was just showing can help you make your job a lot easier. So hopefully you can let us help you secure and transform your ITS networks based on some of the things that we've shown you today. With that, I think what we'd like to do is ask kind of one more poll question of our audience. We'd like to know if any of you would like us to connect you with a Moxa expert to discuss any of the projects that you have, any questions that you might have had on anything that we've covered here today. And we'd be happy to follow up with you with our experts to help try and address whatever issues, concerns, problems that you're having. So if you'll just let us know either yes or no. And now is also a good time if you have any questions on anything that Mario and I covered, go ahead and put them also in the Q&A. And James will let me know or when we want to move to the next.
Yeah, I think we can
Sure.
go ahead and move forward.
All right, so with that, let's go ahead and move to the Q&A piece of it. So if you guys can look at the Q&A tab in your the webinar here and go ahead and type in any questions that you might have. Mario, can you answer the question of what is meant by segmenting your network to use routers to stop access?
Absolutely. A good question too. So basically segmenting your network is actually preventing traffic from going one part of the network to another part of the network. Usually different subnets, if you're familiar with IP addressing, you're actually creating separate sub networks. That way, if something is breached, it's not going to be able to go across to another network. There's some performance enhancements that you get from that as well, because if you have a different IP subnetwork from another IP subnetwork, those broadcasts or those communication protocols that are being used are not shared across the whole network, only that particular subnet. So not only for performance, but for security. So if one part of the network is breached, it can be contained and it won't be able to get to the other side through access control lists, through layer 2 firewall rules, and even layer 3 firewall rules. Great question.
So we have another question kind of somewhat related. And the question is, what kind of secure connection does the network management software use to the devices, and how to make sure this kind of configuration access to the network device does not become a breach point? So I don't know, Mario, if you wanted to take that or if you wanted me to answer it.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I think what they're looking at is more on the side of a bridge or a transport bridge. Is that what they're referring to?
No, I think the question is like, so you've got the network devices and they're talking to MXV1 or MX Security. How are we securing that network management connection between the device and the network management software that you just showed? So
I see. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that one diagram that I put up there where they have a redundant network, but the actual communication between the end devices are actually going through an encrypted tunnel, either using IPsec, which is a security protocol, which is encrypted. So all the information going in between the end device and then your traffic management center is secured. We actually have two different technologies, IPsec and then actually open VPN. So we do have two different technologies. One is actually using encryption and a different security methods, where Open VPN is actually using certificates, a kind of a thing like what your web browser does when you're talking to your bank. So thank you for the question.
So there's also another third method that we use, which is just an encrypted MQTT session between the device and like MX Security as an example. So again, if you're not using some of the VPN technology that Mario was talking about, the network management is secure. And then even on top of that, I think maybe Mario showed it in some of his configurations, we do support SNMP v3. So that does support encrypted passwords as well. So it's not like any of the traffic that we've shown today on any of the tools is going open unencrypted over the network. So it does make it much more difficult for them to kind of breach the network, like I think the person is asking in the question. So
Yep.
hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, go ahead and ask another question there in the chat, and we'll either try and follow it up live or offline. So another question that came up, Mario, is how does Moxa provide real-time information in MXV1?
Oh, good question. Yeah. So again, a lot of our you see in ITS is redundancy, right? And if that redundancy fails, how will you know it fails? It's redundant, right? So it really is imperative that you're actually monitoring that. With MXV1, not only will it monitor you and give you that visualization that I showed, it actually can set up alerts and send out, email SNMP traps. It can send out SMS messages as well. So it can actually do a lot of notifying you of what's going on with your network when you don't have time to be really monitoring it 24/7.
Okay, so we have another question on how Moxa helps prevent denial of service attacks over critical infrastructure. So I can talk to it at a product level, and then Mario, maybe you can add on to it. So the firewall products that I showed you earlier, whether it's the EDF or the EDR series, does have a denial of service prevention capability in the firewall itself. So whether that's trying to protect a critical infrastructure device from being attacked, or if it's maybe even an internet-facing connection, we do have capabilities on our firewalls to limit some of that traffic. Mario, is there anything maybe you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of Mox's equipments, I'm talking anywhere from our wireless access points to our routers and our switches. We actually have that built in. Some of them are configurable, some of them are not, where it's actually when it hits a certain threshold, or even actually set up ACLs for this. When it gets to a certain threshold, it'll just drop that traffic instead of examining it, because that's where denial of service is, right? Is where your device is trying to answer a call because it thinks it's legit and it's not. So if we see the same one come in and out, we see a pattern or we see a certain threshold, we'll start dropping that traffic, thereby, mitigating that denial of service.
So there's another question that I think I can answer here on, does Moxa have IPS, IDS capabilities in their routers? And the answer is yes. It's something that's an add-on feature that we added to the products. And it's something that for all of the new firewalls, the EDR 8010, G9010, EDR 9004, EDF G102, and the TN 4900 all have that capability that could be added as a license later on. So that's something that you definitely can add when you want it. You don't have to do it day one. It's just a software license.
Good question.
Okay. If you have any other questions, go ahead and type it in the chat. The last one that I see is I've got an existing network with an established topology, an IP addressing scheme that we don't want to change. Is there a way to incorporate your firewall technology without having to change my network configuration? This is actually a really good question.
Yeah.
As you see more and more of these network hacks come up, it's something that we're getting a lot of questions about. So again, our firewalls that we have, the EDRs and EDFs, support something called a transparent bridge mode. So it's a firewall that doesn't do routing. It's a mode that doesn't do routing or NAT. So think of it as like a switch, but is able to do all of the layer 3 through 7 ACLs and firewalls as traffic traverses the ports. So this is really good if you've got an established network and you're saying, hey, you know what, I really need to add some firewall capabilities, but I don't want to change my IP address architecture, my VLAN scheme, and I can just drop it in. And the nice thing about it, especially for OT networks, is because it's a transparent bridge, a lot of your IT guys don't even know that it's been put into the network because, again, there's no change, there's no routing, there's no NAT. But we have a lot of OT customers that, because the OT side is managed by a different group, they want to be able to have some of these capabilities. I don't know, Mario, is there anything maybe you wanted to add to that I missed?
Oh, that was very good, Marty. Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to being able to protect a established network, it's a no-brainer, especially when you don't have to change your subnetting and be able to provide that security.
Okay, so I think that covers, we're almost out of time and we're also out of questions. Mario, thanks for joining me on this. Thank you all for participating, and I think we can end the webinar.
All right, everyone have a great day. Thank you
everyone have a great day. Thank you.